All right, let's start with the big story that we are tracking at this hour. We're in a meeting with his aides and fellow lawmakers to discuss the future of global economy. US President Donald Trump has reiterated his push for trade protectionism. Now, in the televised meet, the president quoted tax imbalance with a few nations, including key allies, and pitched vociferously for reciprocal taxes.
75% tax tariff to get now all of a sudden there's no tax. So they'll build factories. Countries where we make a product, they make a product, we pay a tremendous tax to get into their countries. Motorcycles, Harley Davidson, it goes into a certain country. I won't mention the fact that it happens to be India in this case. And a great gentleman called me from India, and he said, we have just reduced the tariff on motorcycles, reduced it down to 50%, 50, from 75 and even 100%. And we have, if you are Harley Davidson, you have to pay 50 to 75% tax tariff to get your motorcycle, your product in. And yet they sell thousands and thousands of motorcycles, which a lot of people don't know, from India into the United States. You know what our tax is? Nothing. So I say we should have reciprocal taxes for a case like that. I'm not blaming India. I think it's great that they can get away with it. I don't know why people allowed them to get away with it. But there's an example that's very unfair. And I think we should have a reciprocal tax. That's called fair trade.
All right, so that is what Donald Trump had to say about reciprocal taxes, and as to how he has blamed certain nations, and he's particularly named India, which has imposed taxes on certain luxury goods. Now, the suggestion of imposing a higher tariff on imports has raised alarms amongst economists who warn that such protectionist policies could actually adversely affect multilateral trade between the United States and the world. Now, the details of the suggested tax, however, were not laid out. There was no immediate clarity on how such a tax will be structured and what goods will it be levied upon. Now, the confusion was also compounded by various factors, the first among them being that the fact that the tax rates in the United States are set by the Congress and not the President. And the Congress has shown little inclination towards any such tax hike. The tariff rates are negotiated with the World Trade Organization, and the United States has pledged a relatively low tariff rate to the Bretton Woods body. Also, there was no mention of the idea in the budget proposal released earlier this week. All right, now to discuss more on this and what the implications of such an announcement by Donald Trump are likely to be, we're joined in by our business correspondent, Sumit Chaturvedi. Sumit, good morning to you. This is a bit of bad news coming in from US President Donald Trump. He specifically named India for the tariff walls that India has imposed on certain luxury motorcycles. He's talking about Harley Davidson, which he says 50 to 75% is the rate of taxation, which he now is saying is completely unfair. What's your take on this?
Well, Saleh, here, India stands to lose less, I would say. In fact, because for Indian auto companies, US is not a market at all. If you talk about Indian auto companies, if Mr. Trump is talking about reciprocal tax, and if he's going to put more tax on India's export of motorcycles, I would like to emphasize here that India doesn't export any bikes to US. India's big manufacturers.
But he did in his soundbite there say that India exports thousands and thousands of motorbikes to the United States. Is that factually incorrect then?
Well, that's really, if we look at the overall automobile scenario, Indian bikes are not going to, we can say that US, Hero, Royal Enfield, or even that for say Indian bike makers, other Bajaj Auto and all, very few numbers they go to US market. It's mostly, it's mostly taken by Honda and other bike makers who can make bikes there or some other places as well. But yes, India can stand to lose if the import tariffs are imposed on other products and not automobile. But as far as automobile is concerned, it's very minuscule, almost nothing. But yes, in India, when the Harley Davidson come, yes, it's more than 100% earlier. The overall tariffs were there, but Harley Davidson is having CKD format of operations, which is semi-knockdown kits. They bring the kits here and assemble them here.
Right, and also, Sumit, very quickly on this point now, Donald Trump has also lashed out against China and South Korea, where he said that the kind of tariff walls that they impose have almost crushed the US, cement and steel economy. Can we expect a lot of changes in terms of these tariff agreements between these nations and the United States?
Well, absolutely, that is going to happen because, China at one point of time was growing very fast. Thereafter, the growth slowed down, and because of which the excess steel was dumped into countries like India and US. Now, US is aware of this, and, every industry, the backbone is steel. And because of the high import, of steel in US, the steel industry is really on a brink of closure, and that's what is worrying Trump. So here we see going forward high import tariffs, especially on steel, because I've covered steel also from some distance. Steel is the market overall across the globe has been actually, we can say that broken by China by dumping huge amount of steel from the last 3 to 4 years. In fact, India actually brought the MIP, which is minimum import price, on steel in the last 2 years so that could be stopped. Now, US is planning to do the same, because otherwise steel is being dumped in US on a large scale, and that is killing the backbone of economy.